Hi, we're on the New York City subway, Line 7, from Queens going towards Manhattan. Many people come on this line to go to work or to school, but we're here today to do some Carpool chemistry. Today, we're going to learn how to calculate the number of atoms of carbon, knowing the number of grams of carbon. So let's say we're given 328 grams of carbon. Find the number of atoms. We know that it's going to be a large number of atoms, but how many exact? Well, let's take a look. Underneath want, so we write down our equation for dimensional analysis. Once again, no need to memorize a specific formula, but just use our general equation. What we want is equal to what we have multiplied by conversion factors. Underneath want, what do we want? Obviously want the number of atoms. Is equal to, underneath have, what do we have available to us? What drives the number of atoms? What does the number of atoms depend on? It depends on the amount of carbon that we have. In this case, 328 grams of carbon. And now we need to multiply it by some factor that relates grams of carbon to atoms of carbon. Do we have a direct connection between grams of carbon and atoms of carbon, like we do grams of carbon and moles of carbon? No, we don't. Just like sometimes you could fly directly from San Francisco to New York City on a non-stop flight. But more often than not, you have to stop at an intermediate location along the way, such as Denver. You get off the plane, you catch another plane, and then you fly on to New York City. In this case, we don't have a direct flight from grams of carbon to atoms of carbon, so we need to stop at an intermediate location along the way that is common to both grams of carbon and atoms of carbon. Just like Denver is common to San Francisco and New York because it's halfway in between, what unit is common to both grams of carbon and atoms of carbon? That unit is the mole. And how do we get from grams of carbon to moles of carbon? Well, we know from our periodic table, from the atomic mass, that for carbon there is 12.01 grams per mole. And so 1 mole of carbon is equal to 12.01 grams of carbon. And from this relationship, we could come up with two different factors. There's 1 mole of carbon for every 12.01 grams of carbon, or we could say there's 12.01 grams of carbon for every 1 mole of carbon. And which of these two factors do we multiply by in order to convert from grams to moles for carbon? Well, we want to get rid of the grams in the numerator, so we need grams in the denominator in our factor. That's this first one right over here. So we multiply it by the first one, 1 mole of carbon for every 12.01 grams of carbon. Notice how the grams of carbon cancel out, leaving us with moles. But we still have not arrived at our final destination yet, because we want to have atoms and not moles. And so now we will need to multiply it by one more factor that relates moles to atoms. How many atoms are there in a mole? We know that 1 mole is equal to 6.02 times 10 to the 23rd atoms. And from this relationship, we know that there's 1 mole for every 6.02 times 10 to the 23rd atoms. Or we could say there are 6.02 10 to the 23rd atoms for every 1 mole. And which one do you multiply this by in order to get rid of the moles in the numerator, to cancel out the moles, leaving us with atoms? It looks like the second one right here has moles in the denominator, which will cancel it out. 6.02 times 10 to the 23rd atoms for every 1 mole. The moles cancel out. And now we have atoms of carbon, which is what we're looking for. So we've reached our final destination. We could put our equal sign down. We could do our calculation. 328 times 1, big line says divided by 12.01 times, and now we need to put this number in scientific notation, so we punch in 6.02 exp, or some calculators have EE, and that means times 10 to the what power? To the 23rd power. We hit our equal sign, and on our calculator we see 1.64, and then we see this 25 up over here, and that means 1.64 times 10 to the 25th power. And that's how you calculate the number of atoms knowing the number of grams. From the New York City subway, line 7, this is Carpool Chemistry. Thanks for watching.